I first was exposed to this field of structured creativity through this guy, Edward de Bono. So he's got a huge website. He's been around for a long time. He's a neurologist. So I went to a day-long presentation of the 6 thinking hats. So the 6 thinking hats correspond to questions or types of questions that people can ask either by themselves or in a group process to analyze. Okay, so red is emotions, I feel. White is positive statements. Black is negative and judgment statements. Green is creative statements. Blue is the blue sky. It's optimistic statements. The yellow hat is sunny, positive things. So any proposition, any problem can be analyzed through the use of these categories of questions. And the way this is used in group analysis and thinking exercises is people go around the table very fast, and they don't talk except to say a single sentence, maybe 2 sentences. So we have a problem here in our organization, maybe it's conflict or something like this. So we start with a statement and we say, okay, let's have some red hat input. And people say, I feel frustrated, or I feel angry, or I feel, so we go around the room and get that out. And that's it. And it's not, I feel angry because, and I think we ought to do this, and that makes me, no. Just, I feel. Then we go to, and there's no particular order. Some very experienced practitioners find that there's an order that helps. Then we go to, let's go to the black hat. Everything negative you can think of in 1 sentence or 2 sentences at the most. People go around the room and do this, and someone takes all these things down, and sooner or later in the process, light bulbs start to go on, people start to have insight, and it's because they organize and stratify their thoughts, and analysis breaks through of this. He also wrote a book, which I don't have here. It's called Lateral Thinking. Lateral thinking is where structured creativity comes in. And in lateral thinking, what lateral thinking is he gives the diagram or the illustration of a tree. Here, let's do green for a tree. Okay, so here's a tree. All right, here's a tree. All right, and so the tree has maybe 10,000 leaves, all these leaves around on the tree, all kinds of leaves, and 1 trunk. So if you start your inquiry from here, this is an analogy, you could end up 10,000 different places, all the leaves, okay? But if you start your inquiry here and work this way, you're going to end up the same place. So all of these leaves are connected by going down through here and back out. They're connected through some central. So if you take it on a smaller scale, all ideas are connected. Maybe not directly, but indirectly. There's some degrees of separation. Okay? Let's go to some basics about creativity. Think to yourself how we start learning things. We have sensory input. We have experiences. As de Bono pointed out, the human brain, the human mind, is a self-organizing system. It takes experiences and groups them with like experiences so that you end up having similar experiences. So humans can anticipate what makes them feel good, what makes them feel bad, what makes them feel happy, successful, and so experiences get grouped together. From experiences then, we go to, once we learn to speak, we have words. And then with words comes concepts. Concepts. So then with concepts comes attributes. So we're going to call them aspects, attributes. Well, guess what? What happens then is that we find out that an attribute or an aspect is related to another concept. And when you start thinking about this, you realize all of a sudden that there is no such thing as an isolated idea. There's no such thing as an isolated concept. They're all connected to something else. So there's no, so for example, here's a very concrete thing. We have a basketball and a baseball, all right? So they share the attribute of being round, all right? All right, well, wait a minute, we got a football here, okay? It's not round, but guess what? You can throw it. Guess what? It's in a sport. So there's some attribute, some aspect. So they're all connected, and you cannot, we're not going to take the time to do it because it's a fruitless exercise. We're not going to try and figure out an idea or a concept that is totally unconnected with something else, okay? So our ideas relate back to experiences. So for every experience there is a word, for most anyway. There is a word. There is an idea. There's a word. There's a concept. And the connections between them are what we call analogies. So when you learn something new, the reason you learn it, the reason you process it, digest it, make it your own, is because it's connected to something you already know. So, you know this is a book. This is very concrete, okay? That's because you've seen them before. Okay, if this was the very first book you'd ever seen, you wouldn't have a word for it. You wouldn't have, you wouldn't have anything to pin it on to. So, in a nutshell, the process of being creative, of generating new ideas, the process comes down to disrupting the connections between ideas or creating new analogies. So here we have a tool. Let's call this a snow shovel. They always have these little things on them, Anyway, so this is a snow shovel, all right? So there's a problem with a snow shovel. The problem is that if you're going like this, your back hurts, all right? So your back hurts. So somebody decided, well, let's take this snow shovel and let's design it like this. Put the handle up here. So there's this big S curve. So what does that do? That puts the blade at a different angle, okay? So you can look at that as, yes, this is the tool, okay? That's the tool. There you go. And then you have the user of the tool over here, all right? But the way this idea was reformulated is, let's figure out what's the tool. What's the tool? The tool is the whole unit of the user and this instrument, the whole thing. So we address the whole thing, not just whether this is effective, but whether this is effective too, and it's more effective if it doesn't have a hurting back. Continuing with the tool analogy, it's the same thing between screwdrivers with offset handles. What they did was, instead of the tool being this, the tool is this. See? So that's looking at this in a very concrete way. Here's idea number one, and here is idea number two. And there's some shared attribute or common aspect of those ideas that is an analogy. We'll call that connection an analogy. So what the process of structured creativity does is explores whether there may be another idea down here or someplace we'll call idea number three, that has a connection with one or two of these. So the process then of generating new ideas is to explore another way where analogies, some other analogy that is unconventional, that is not what you'd expect. That's where this disruption comes in. This is disrupting. This process here disrupts the connection between idea number one and idea number two. We don't have a whole lot of time here, so I want to illustrate the use of one technique out of the 25 or 30 that are in some of these books. How to rebuild community, okay?
And ideally, how do you build community there, in one place?
Around the metro.
Yeah,
Okay,
because that brings people in and out.
Right.
And it's necessarily an economic development engine, really.
okay. So let's play with this. What do you associate with this? Some words, either attributes, aspects, something, even a random word association. So metro, focus, coffee, flowers, transportation, commerce, okay? Okay, commerce. So you're looking at, when you say focus, it's focus of pride,
Focus on security first.
security,
and commerce.
okay?
Because you have to have, from a military standpoint, I guess, with a very humanitarian bent, you have to have security first. Because like, I've went to SLU and talked to some people and they go, most of the women they know won't pregnant because they're scared. I'm like, you know?
Okay,
And so if you have security, then you can have the foundation for commerce, I think. Do you agree?
okay,
I agree.
okay. So the way this works, pick a word from the random word table, or anything else for that matter. One of those words.
Church.
Church? Right. So what do we associate with churches?
Communities.
Okay, community. Safety, okay.
Values.
Values. Music. Peace.
It's not a word.
Mentoring, okay. Opportunity.
Activities
Activities, yeah.
or involvement.
Involvement, ownership, what did I miss here? Change, right, okay.
And food.
Gotta have food.
Donuts.
Food,
Culture.
okay.
Culture, yeah.
Culture. So let me ask you then.
Vision that that's a great, for the same reason.
Okay, we said how to rebuild community around a metro.
Even on these.
You're causing me to think how to rebuild a community around
Yes, absolutely. Washington.
Ferguson, around,
Church, which is church.
Yeah.
okay? So,
So they both go hand in hand.
I think the strength here will transfer.
Or, yeah.
okay.
That's local.
Well, did you expect that?
No.
Do you think of church stuff when you think of metro stuff?
I think of community.
Okay. You're starting to see, I think, how this process works. You see? This is just one tool. Okay? So, are we generating some ideas? Are we, coming to something here? Okay? This is fine. I'm going to put down a couple more. STEM. And polish and peel. Core. I'm getting the sense people are kind of having fun here with this.
Yeah.
Okay? All right. So we remember our focus here, and our focus is to come up with, eventually to that, how do we build community? What is it about some of this stuff that gives us a suggestion for some of this stuff? Okay, now before we all sat down here, I would have never connected an apple with a metro. I never would have thought about an apple or a church with community. I mean, I'll be frank with you, I haven't thought about how to build community around a metro station. It's to illustrate the point that all ideas are connected if you probe a little bit, okay? That all aspects, so, what's the famous phrase, 6 degrees of separation, do some of these words suggest something that might be attributes of a community? Okay, so commerce, do we make it possible for people to buy apples or other food or whatever at the metro station? Do we maybe give people ownership of spaces at a metro station? You know, whether it's food carts or food stalls, or
Creates opportunity.
which creates opportunity. Do we maybe, okay, do we maybe plant trees? Do we, beautify it by natural things here,
And I see a bigger thing in this whole thing that I just want to point out with the church and the apple. The fact of it's not just a station.
No,
It's
exactly.
not just a station. It's a connection to all of those other things.
Yes, it
I
is.
love it.
Right.
That's something that
See?
people fail to see always.
See?
They think it's just one place. It's a connected network.
Okay, so what you've done there, what you've demonstrated there, is you've taken this concept. I mean, all of us have an experience. If somebody says to you, it's a metro station, wow, you have this idea, okay? So what he's done here is taken the concept of metro station and said, no, it includes this and this. Just like that tool, it's either a screwdriver or it's a screwdriver plus an arm, or it's a snow shovel or it's a snow shovel plus a back, So it's bigger than just a train station. You see what I'm saying? That's exactly what the process is trying to do. So the other thing I want to tell you is that it's fun to do in a group. It's fun it's a nice way to run a committee meeting. A meeting. It's a fun exercise.
So why don't you run in the Ferguson Commission?
That's the nicest thing anybody said to me today. I gotta tell you. That's
A few weeks ago.
But so but you can do the process on your own too. Yes, go ahead.
So it's the idea. So this is about generating creativity. Then the idea is afterwards. So what do you do with that?
So what you do with that is,
I think that was the question.
you
you were asking.
you have someone to write things down like this. These are all the ideas, and then you have to get into, well, each of these ideas requires something for a practical application. If you're going to plant trees or you're going to set up commerce or businesses or whatever, then you have to have a place to put those. The place is going to require some construction. You've got to do this. So
this is creativity to help you then design a plan.
yeah, to design a plan. So what this does is this, I like it, here's an analogy again. I liken it to coming up with a stick figure of the ideas. And then you start to, as we say, flesh it out with the practical considerations. So that maybe, we decide, well, we want flowers, here. But maybe we want someone to sell the flowers there as opposed to a city putting up flowers. Maybe we want to approach the train station as not just the metro is not just a station for trains, but maybe it's an experience. Maybe we are not creating a train station, maybe we are creating an experience. So that we think, well, what do we want people to say when they get off a train? Well, I'm here, and that's it.
From point A to B safely.
They want to say, wow,
Oh, what a pretty place.
what a cool place.
I feel
What
safe.
I like this. I feel safe. So what do we do to get people to say, I feel safe? See. So is this making sense in terms of a tool to generate ideas? Where I've seen this work most effectively is where it is time limited. Because we say we're going to spend an hour on this, we're going to spend an hour and a half on this, and we're going to package it up, and we're going to come back in a week, or we're going to put these ideas down, generate these ideas, and then we're going to come back, or we're going to assign a champion for each idea to start to do a thumbnail sketch. And of those, maybe you come up with 20 ideas or 30 ideas or whatever. Well, a certain number of them are going to be rejected as impractical or out of hand, or it's going to cost too much money, or we don't have the budget, or something like that, So then you thin them out, and then you come back. And so it's an iterative process, is what it is. But what I think is the beauty of it is you can do all of this just by yourself. You can get the process started. A wonderful harmony is created when we join together the seemingly unconnected. That's what we did today.